Hey, what's up, everybody? You are tuned into another episode of Fatherhood. It's Dope, the podcast. I'm your guy, Aaron McGee. And per usual, all my guests are special, but this is a special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome JT McCraw. Clap, clap, clap. This is where I kind of like insert some audience applause, right? But it's well deserved. JT McCraw, or as I call him, actually, I feel kind of strange just calling him JT, but I call him Pastor JT. Pastor JT is actually the founder of the Be Men movement. He is the men's pastor, my men's pastor at Bethel World Outreach Church. He's a certified John Maxwell life coach. He's an independent life coach with Stephen Mansfield, the manly of men that you will ever meet. And he is the proud father of 5 beautiful, amazing children. And he's been married, how long now? 27?
28 years.
28 years. All that to say.
Don't rob me and say 27. That don't rob me.
I won't do that. All that to say that he is well qualified and certified and licensed and all the above to have a conversation on what else today? Fatherhood. And today, because I'm talking to the men's pastor and one of the most, I would say forward-thinking men that I know in the area of men, we're going to talk about not just fatherhood today, but we're going to talk about manhood. And for me, Pastor JT, as you know, it's kind of hard to have a conversation with you that doesn't somehow evolve into the topic of manhood, because I know for a fact that you live and you breathe this on a day-to-day basis, and you've had the privilege, just based on my understanding, of speaking into the lives of so many men. And so we already know that you're qualified to be here because you're a dad, you're a father. And so I just want to start the conversation off with what else? Manhood. And you're like, where do you go with that? Let me just ask you, first of all, like, why start a movement? Why start the Be Men movement? Why is manhood so important to you with all of the other things that you have going on in your life? I didn't even mention to the audience that you have a background in construction, which we can tap on because I know that's built into your model. But why start this movement for Be Men?
Well, first of all, thank you for all the kind words, Aaron. I hope that I don't disappoint anybody. You kind of set it up way too high. So
It's what
anyway,
I do.
just, the reason why, like you said, I was a high-end home builder for a long time. I built for pro athletes and executives and, music stars. But all the time that I was doing that, man, my life was a mess. So here I was making money and, some would say living the dream, but yet, man, internally, I was just a mess.
Yeah.
And, ended up losing all of that. Really, my wife lost my marriage, at the time. And, as my wife and I started putting our life back together, the pieces back together in 2004, I don't know, just something was birthed in me that the question, how many other men on the surface look just like I did? But yet internally, man, they're just dying 1,000 deaths and not really able to live the life that they were put on this earth to live. I mean, I forfeited a lot by living the way that I was living.
Yeah.
So my assumption is now, it's funny. My assumption is I don't meet a man who's not going through that. So it just allows me to peel back a little bit, of a man's soul and just really speak to him, and just using my own personal experience and the experiences that I've built on other men that I've, thousands of men. I don't know at this point how many men I've talked to, but, just learning wisdom from their lives as well. So it's not really something, honestly, that I think about in the terms of, I got to get up and, be a men's pastor day or help another man. I mean, it's just really become who I am.
Yeah.
And I think for me, it's not, I don't go to work every day, man. I love what I do. So I would do this whether somebody paid me or not. So don't mention that. But I would.
Yeah, yeah. You can go ahead and turn your cell phone off. This is all live right now.
I'm just everybody's just dang texting me. And
yeah,
it's just constant.
There's a lot of conversation happening right now around this idea of male versus man, or malehood versus manhood, and just understanding that there is actually a difference. And my encounter with you, and I've gone through the B-Man program. I don't know, would you call it a program?
I mean, it's just things that we offer, the Journey, the Conquer series,
Okay.
Just stuff that we offer.
So I've had a firsthand experience with the offerings of B-Man, and I understand through B-Man, I have a biblical definition of manhood. But what's your thought on, and I'll share that, or you can share it either way, but what's your thought on the idea of malehood versus manhood? And do you believe that there's a difference, or are they one and the same?
Yeah, there's a big difference, actually. You meet a lot of guys a lot of guys these days that want to excuse their behavior away.
Yeah.
So they want to, well, my dad did this to me, or my mom did this, or my dad didn't do this, or, this happened to me. And they want to blame their life on outside circumstances, where really, when you start becoming a man, you start realizing that it doesn't really matter what has happened to me. I don't have the inner character to live this life that I should. So when a male, I'll say it this way, when a male realizes that he is responsible for his own life, that to me is the process of becoming a man, or one of the processes. Because I've learned that part of manhood is accepting responsibility. And that's accepting responsibility in totality, not just in my work and then come home and I'm a tyrant at home. No, it's accepting the responsibility of my own home, accepting the responsibility of what kind of dad am I? What kind of husband am I? What kind of employee am I? What kind of employer am I? And really not looking at the outside. Again, I'm not negating that, but we have to look at the internal so much more if we're going to become the men that we're built to be.
Yeah. What do you think is some of the greatest challenges? Like, literally, as I was listening to you, this word accountability came to mind, and I'm interested in knowing with a definition or understanding of manhood. So it's one thing to know a thing; it's another thing to do a thing.
Yeah,
and to walk out this life in the fullness of who I am and my calling to manhood. And just for the record, if I can get it out there, so I've been through the journey, like I mentioned, and then there's an established biblical definition of what manhood is, and it's someone who leads courageously, who accepts responsibility, who rejects passivity, and who invests eternally, which essentially means discipleship, or calling someone else up. So taking the lessons that you've learned, paying it forward. Did I summarize that right?
Yeah, that's good. So you're a good student.
Thank you. So, I mean, and that was back in 2013 or 14 that I got that biblical definition of manhood. And so just bringing it back to this understanding, or this word around accountability, do you find that it's challenging for, even if a man knows what a biblical definition of manhood is, or do you think that it's challenging for him to allow other men, especially like yourself, to hold them accountable in this process?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And let's be clear about the definition of accountability. I mean, there's all kinds of, thoughts about that. How we define it is accountability is giving someone permission to save me from myself.
Yeah.
So what a lot of guys do, and what I used to do, is we would do something, and then we'd go to a friend or go to and just say, hey, it would come up in a conversation that, hey, this is what I did. Well, that's called confession. That's not
Yeah.
accountability. Accountability is actually doing something before the deed is done, right? So, and I think that's why men find it a little bit difficult, because nobody wants to be seen as failing at something or getting rejected, because of a behavior. Which accountability doesn't reject you, it redirects you, right? So it's a redirection. Like, okay, I got to stop. I've asked one of my guys to help me stop this behavior. And so when he calls me up, not out, when he calls me up to a different level, he's just redirecting me. It's not a rejection. So a lot of guys have a problem with, again, it's just nobody wants to feel like they've done something bad. I mean, but it's in those moments that's when I've grown the most.
Yeah.
In fact, I went to my friends back in the early 2004. And when I went through my, the dark days of my soul, as I say, I went to my friends and said, if you see something in me and you don't tell me, I'm going to go find other friends, because I need people to help me with my blind spots. I actually want to grow. So the desire to be everything that you put on this earth to be has got to far outweigh the possibility. It's just a possibility that somebody may not like me because I did something. And if they don't like me because I did something, they weren't my friend in the first place.
Right.
But that's just kind of how I've come. And I think every man really needs to be on this kind of journey where becoming what he's put on this earth to do and be is more important than any possibility of rejection or shame or misguided thoughts from someone else. So,
yeah, that's real good. You said a lot. I really hope that the listeners, I really hope that you had a notepad out. And if you don't have one yet, go and grab one. I mean, just mentally, I was able to hold on to two of them, which is confession versus accountability. And then there was the other one that
it's not rejection, it's a redirection.
That one right there.
Yeah.
That one right there. So that's really, really good notes. If you missed it, go back and listen to it right now. Right. But here's the other thing, as I'm listening to you say this, because, my goal today is to really have a conversation that I'm always talking about fatherhood, which we'll transition to here in a second. But, in order to be a father, I really do think that you have to have a clear understanding of who you are as a man. Right. Mm-hmm. And as I heard you talking, another one of those big taboo words that came to mind that most men steer away from, even in 2020, is this idea of vulnerability. And you talk about accountability is one thing, but as I was listening to you and you were laying out what your accountability process looked like, and I'm wondering if you can speak to men who, they say, yeah, I want to be accountable, but being, in my mind, being vulnerable and being accountable, like they work in tandem. In order for the accountability to be successful, there has to be a level of vulnerability. And so is there a way, or what are your thoughts on lifting the veil or lifting the shame of men in this word around vulnerability, and not just to your wife, your partner,
right,
but to another brother in a healthy way?
Yeah. I like the word transparency better than vulnerability.
Okay, I'll take that.
Because transparency is a picture of something that's clear. And so I want to be clear with my friends. I don't want there to be anything that holds me back, even from having good friendships. I mean, my friendships that are deep, that, I feel comfortable saying anything. Man, there's just a level of transparency that goes both ways. That, now, one of my guys can walk in and I can, just by the look on his face, say, okay, what's up? Because we've gotten to know each other that well. I find that if men will do that, if they'll just take that chance. Now, let me put a caveat to it. A lot of guys have been transparent with the wrong person, got rejected, and then say, well, everybody's going to reject me.
Yeah, so they shut it down.
That's correct. And that's not the case. It was just the wrong person. So that's like eating a bad steak and going, well, I just hate steak everywhere. Well, no, you just had one bad steak. So let's say the same thing with a friend. When you find the right friends, and when you find people that really want, here's how I know they're my friend. They want the best for me. They just want the best for me. So they'll say whatever needs to be said in order to make me better, because that's what they want from me. They're not trying to leverage our friendship to get ahead in a position or a job. They're not trying to leverage to, for whatever reason. They just want what's best for me.
Yeah.
And there are those men that are out there that if you'll just not rush in, a lot of guys just want to rush in. I had a guy call me last week or text me last week, and I mean, it was just funny. His text was, "Will you be my friend?" I'm like, that is just the oddest text. Now, I know this guy. I've known this guy. I know
what to do with that text.
For years, I've known this guy. I've helped him for years. And to get a text like that just showed me the depth of insecurity that he still has.
Wow.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of guys out there like that. There's insecure, and that insecurity keeps them from being transparent because they feel, again, that they're going to be rejected. But I say, look, if one fails, then go to the next one.
Yeah.
If that one fails, go to the next one. Because I would not want to live my life, honestly. I wouldn't want to live my life any different. I have lived in secret. I have lived where I've had double lives going on at the same time. I have lived that life for years and years and years. And so I have something to compare how I live now with how I used to live.
Yeah.
And there's no comparison. There's no comparison to even with my wife that used to, it's funny, my phone back in the day, we didn't even have smartphones. They were dumb phones. So
the flips and the
Nextel and all those.
The Nextels.
And I can remember even back then, it made me nervous when my wife would pick up my phone or my wife said, "Hey, can I borrow your computer for a minute?"
Yeah.
There was a nervousness because I knew what I'd been looking at.
Yeah.
I knew what I had texted to some other woman. And so to flip it now to, I mean, my wife has any password I have. I mean, she can use whatever I don't care because there's nothing to hide because I'm transparent. I live a transparent life.
Yeah.
And it's just a different way to live. And I wish more men would go, you know what, I want that. And I don't care what it takes to get that. I'm going to be tenacious about that.
Do you think that's why so many men are open to the idea of you speaking into their life? Because I know, through firsthand experience, I went through B-Men, for instance, or had the B-Men experience prior to being married. And I was thankful that I did. But my only regret about the B-Men experience is that I think I may have been 25 when I went through that. And my only regret was, man, I wish that I would have had a hold of this when I was 16, 17, 18, before I made the type of bonehead decisions that I made in late high school, in college, and post-college, right? And so, but now with the understanding and with the knowledge that I have, I'm open to conversations. I talk to brothers, to men all the time about this type of stuff. But I'm wondering if do you understand why men are receptive to you and your message, even with, I guess I want to say, even with all your experiences that you bring to the table, is it a reason why I see men flock to you? I know for a fact that men let you speak into their lives in a way that they probably wouldn't let other men speak into their lives, about here comes this B word again, some of the most vulnerable things that they have happening literally in their households. What do you attribute that to?
It's simple. I live a transparent life.
Yeah.
And I think, and I don't overreact to things. I'm not one of those guys. And I think that they enjoy the calmness, because usually when I'm talking to a guy, his life is really out of control. I mean, he is just, I always say you're going up a gravel hill, just trying to get any kind of footing. And it's all loose gravel. So it's just difficult. So here a guy like me, and there's many others, but here a guy like me comes and holds out a hand and says, "Hey, man, I got you for a moment." Uh, I think that they see the authenticity about that I'm not gaining anything from them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know I'm a men's pastor. I get paid to do, but understand I'm a men's pastor because I was doing this way before I had the title.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a calmness that I bring. That's with age too, just, I know that most things work out when a man starts making the right decisions. I've been through that path. He may not know that yet, but I know it. If a man starts, working on his inner character and really accepting responsibility of things, I mean, it expedites the change. It's the ones that fight you, well, I don't really believe that. I don't know what they believe because their beliefs got them into the trouble that they were in.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, if I were them, I'd go, well, I'm just going to believe like you for a while because you seem pretty steady. But, the guys that fight you the whole way, typically they're the ones that fall off to the wayside. I mean, I hate to use that term, but, you just don't see them anymore because they just don't stick to the process of having another man help them. So I think I bring the calmness. There is a wisdom, obviously that comes whenever you talk to as many men as I do. I think they like the forthrightness.
Yeah.
I do this all the time. A guy will come up to me and talk about another subject, and he's, man, I'm going through this. Is what I'm going through, and I'll look dead at him and go, "So how long have you been looking at pornography?" And it's like,
I knew that was
like he thinks I'm a prophet, and I go, "No, I just know that 80% of men do. I know that the odds are stacked against him." So, things like that I don't mind. I'm not going to shame a man. I say this all the time. You'll never shame a man to greatness.
Yeah.
But you have to go through the process of pulling those things out and going, dude, you just got to deal with this.
That's good. And when you say you'll never shame a man to greatness, it takes me back to another one that you said a second ago, which was calling man up opposed to calling them out.
Yeah. My friend Anthony Flemings came up with that one. He, I think he's the one that we were talking about it one day. And it's, we were talking, hey, we just got to call these dudes out. He goes, you know what? It's actually, we got to call them up to another level.
That's good.
And but I got stuck with me ever since he said that.
Yeah. Well, you own it now. Anthony who?
Yeah.
I'm joking because I know Anthony and I know he may watch or listen to this. So what's up, Anthony?
Oh, he better listen to it.
I have a question though, because we talked about this at the top of the show about, your background in construction and being a builder. And I know that, once a builder, always a builder. And I'm sure you've even led the project to build a church, the church that we're in now. And so I'm thinking, like, how do you take those tools, those skill sets, or do you take those skill sets as a builder and apply them to the cheap way to say it is building a man up? Sure.
Yeah. In fact, I equate that all the time. Building a home building a man is like building a home. Mm-hmm. There's got to be a solid foundation, and a man's got to choose what that foundation is going to be. For me, as a Christian man, I'll say that foundation is my relationship with Christ. It's very clear cut for me. And when I get that right, then I can build on that foundation, and it's never going to, when norms come, it's not going anywhere. You don't ever see stuff anymore. So you don't necessarily, but you see, yeah.
Hold on, I don't want to cut you off, but the internet on my side just tried to rob us of a really, really good point. And I want to make sure that what you just said.
Yeah, we'll do it again.
Yeah. No, we're still going. So what was that last point? Because my internet was kind of flaky.
So I don't know when the last thing I said, but basically building a man is the same as building a home. You start with the foundation. You get that right. You get that strong. For me, that foundation is my relationship with Christ. It's my relationship with my wife. It's my relationship with my friends. That's a foundation that's never moving, right? Then we talk about framing character. When the studs go up in a home, you see them for a brief moment, but yet that becomes the structure of which the house, you see the structure when you walk in, but you don't see the studs anymore. Yeah. So you see the outcome of the studs, but you don't see the studs. That's character. It's hard to see character, but you can see the outcome of character. right? And then, of course, protection, putting a roof over, what's that look like? I mean, look, I'm a protector, protect my kids and protect my wife. And that just doesn't mean physically. That means emotionally, mentally, spiritually. I'm the protector. I make sure that we have things that our life is covered, and that no outside force can get to any of my family or any of my relationships. I mean, those are just a brief few that I go through them so fast because it's just, again, such a part of who I am. So,
as a life coach, I can see you passing out a template in one of your speaking engagements of a house with all the parameters and telling men to kind of, put it together based on how they see themselves or where they are. I don't know. We can, if you want more of that, then you can pay me a consulting fee to help you develop that. No, but seriously, so I got two things before we have to land this plane, as I like to say. I love it because we hadn't even broached fatherhood, but at the end of the day, I think, again, I go back to the point that manhood and fatherhood are synonymous. And so in order, everybody wants to be a great father, but I think it goes back to what you just said about establishing a foundation. And that foundation of being a great father is to be a great man. So saying all that to say, I know and I strongly believe that the listeners are finding value in all that you have to offer. So there's one thing, you and I, we were talking about this last week, and I want you to kind of expound upon, we're in the midst of a pandemic. It's still COVID-19 amongst us, and it probably, we'll be talking about COVID-19 for a while, but it's even one of the reasons why we're doing this call in the way that we're doing it. And so you have this thing that you were talking to me about, is it contagious courage?
Oh, contagious courage. Yeah.
Okay.
Contagious courage. Yeah.
Contagious courage. So I just want you to expound upon that a little bit, because I thought that it was profound and so appropriate for the times that we're in.
Yeah. I was listening to a newscast, and one of the doctors said, just in passing, said, you cannot be contagious unless you're infected first. And it just got me to thinking, man, what else have I been infected by in my life? Because whatever I'm infected by, that's what I'm going to spread.
Yeah.
So in my own home, if I have a bad attitude, well, guess if I'm infected with a bad attitude, then why would I expect my family and my kids not to have a bad attitude? I infected them with it. If my wife doesn't feel loved, well, I've infected her with that feeling by something that I've done or didn't do or didn't say. Or if I'm fear-based, if I walk around, and again, COVID-19 is a very serious thing, and it's not something we take lightly. But at the same time, it can't cause me to walk around in fear. I still got to know that, look, God is still in control. And if real quick story, just to kind of wrap this, my mom used to do prison ministry for like 50 years. One day she had one of the guys in death row. He tapped on his door. She walked over and he said, just because I'm behind this door doesn't mean that I cannot have you and your family killed.
Wow.
Now, I was expecting my mom to be, when she was telling the story, like she got real nervous and real upset. But here's what my mom said. She goes, when God wants me dead, I'll die.
Yeah.
Whether by your hands or whether by a disease or whether by something else. But you don't own my breath.
Wow.
God owns my breath.
Yes.
So hearing my mom tell that story, that's kind of been, I've grown up with that attitude. It's like, you know what? Now I'm not going to go jump out of a plane without a parachute and go, well, if God wants me to die, I'll die. I mean, I'm not going to be an idiot.
That's just foolishness, and that's not wisdom.
It's foolishness. But as I live my life and as I do what I'm called to do and put to do and do what I'm, on this earth, man, whenever my life is up, I can't add one single breath.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not going to be foolish. I'm not going to be stupid. I'm just going to do what God's called me to do on this earth. When he wants me home, I'll go.
Yeah.
Until then, I'm going to continue on this mission.
That's good. And what I'm able to extract from that, you gave the the rundown of what you are infected with, you can infect others, or
you become contagious.
yeah, it becomes contagious. But I think another point here particularly, is that understanding that this is a call up for men.
Yeah.
And really understanding that in our homes, whether we want to accept it or not, that we set the temperature of the attitude, or the energy, or however you want to look at it, and sometimes even the pace of our homes. And yes, we are in this together with our spouses, and we honor them. But I know that there's a show of hands for folks that are listening, of men who, some men really get it, that they set the temperature of their homes. And so, just denouncing and rejecting this idea of fear, and, leading a household where peace prevails opposed to anxiety, even in a time like this. So that's at least my takeaway from it.
Sure.
All right. So the wheels have just touched the ground, and it's time for folks to start calling their rides, because we're taxiing in. And it wouldn't be a Fatherhood is Dope podcast without me asking you something about fatherhood. So I'm going to throw you a softball and just ask, man, what do you delight in about being a father of 5? And it's not a short answer dealing with you, but just take a shot, take a swing.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind, what's the best thing about being a father of 5, is I'm not a father of 6. That's the first thing.
Hold on. Say that again. Oh, that you're not a father of 6?
The best thing about being a father of 5 is I'm not going to do one more.
Good.
Fatherhood, man, is just such a roller coaster ride. I mean, because I have the privilege, my oldest is 28, my youngest is 9.
Yeah.
So I've got one married. So, I mean, I've gone through the gamut of, watching my kids grow up and become somewhat mature adults, all the way down to this morning with my 9-year-old, asking her why she cries every time she don't get her way. It's like, I don't understand that.
Okay.
But,
hold on. You hurt my feelings, because I have a 3-year-old, and I ask her the same question, and you telling me that this could go on for another 6 years.
Different personalities for different, all my children weren't like that. She's the baby. I mean, just enough said. She's the baby of 5, and everybody gives what she wants, and she's gotten used to getting it. So, but the joy and heartbreak, by the way, because you can't have, the tension of life is there's always good and there's always bad going. Some of my kids have not chosen great walks. All of them have made bad choices. All of them made good choices.
Yeah.
And you relish in the good and you hurt in the bad. So like Sundays, this Sunday, all my kids are coming over. I love those moments where my family's together, even though there might be disagreement, because as they grow older, you learn they don't agree with everything that you say, which could be problematic. And they don't have to, by the way. So I don't know, man. Fatherhood is just such a journey that's really grows you as a man. It's really humbled me. With my older ones, I can see the mistakes that I made and the outcome of those mistakes. And so now with the younger ones, it's like, man, I'm a fool if I make those same mistakes again.
Right.
So it's almost like Shelly and I, we say we get a replay, but for the most part, especially for young fathers, not everything is a big deal, and they're going to grow out of most things. So just really focus on the things that are super important. I can remember us being so just overly, like helicopter parents, over certain things, like that's just terrible. That's, you're going to grow up and you're going to be like that. They like got over it and it wasn't a big deal. So, we've just learned that parenting is, you got to pace yourself in parenting and not be up here and down here. It's just kind of an even keel kind of thing. And I've seen my younger kids respond to that. My younger kids, by the way, are adopted. So we even brought in a whole nother set of circumstances that every adoptive parent will know what I'm talking about. you know, just dealing with those things, but yet, man, just loving them and watching them bloom and grow. And I mean, it's pretty amazing, actually. I mean, it's frustrating a lot, but at the end of the day, you wouldn't trade it for anything.
I'm glad that you said that. I'm glad that, you know, I love when a parent admits that parenting can be frustrating, and immediately followed by, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And you said something else that was really comforting, in saying that, you know, not to take everything is not a big deal, and they'll grow out of most things. You know, as a dad of a 3-year-old, that's something that, you know, I can rest in, especially in the phase that my daughter's in. So, you know, as we've pulled up to the gate and we spent this time together, it's clear that we could talk an entire another hour about fatherhood alone, just from the dynamics of having a 9-year-old. Your 9-year-old is the youngest.
Yeah, 9, 12, 23, 25, 28.
From 9 to 28. With your 2 youngest being adopted. So there's a lot of dynamics there. There's a lot of wisdom as well. I'm hoping that my listeners will follow you. All your information will be listed in the podcast, but follow your journey, whether it be on fatherhood or on manhood in general. And of course, I thank you for flying. Fatherhood is dope. The seatbelts. You may now take your seatbelts off and be careful, because passage, what you call it? Luggage may have shifted. I hadn't been on a plane.
Luggage may have shifted on the plane during the ride.
Right. All right. JT McCraw, ladies and gentlemen. Pastor JT, I really want to thank you for coming on to the Fatherhood is Dope podcast. This has been long overdue. I appreciate your support that you've given to this platform pretty much since I started, man. So just know that you're always welcome back anytime.
Well, right. I will take you up on that offer anytime.
All right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Fatherhood is Dope, the podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, and of course, subscribe on our YouTube page, Fatherhood is Dope. Make sure that you like and leave a comment. I really enjoy responding to your comments and answering any questions that you all may have. And of course, you can follow my guests. I'll always include their information in the description. So if you want to follow JT McCraw, I'll insert his information down at the bottom too. All right, it's been real. It's your guy Aaron McGee with Fatherhood is Dope. Peace.